Today, we're going to talk about a really powerful idea that's gaining a ton of traction in medical research, and it's this. The food we eat literally creates an internal environment, a terrain, that can either help cancer grow or help our bodies fight it. Welcome to The Explainer.
It's something a lot of us worry about, right? You hear about cancer running in families, and it's easy to think our genes have just sealed our fate. But what if that's not the whole story? What if our genes are only one part of a much bigger equation?
Well, here's the thing. A ton of new research is suggesting that the environment inside our bodies, our internal terrain, plays this massive role. And honestly, the most exciting part about all this, we actually have the power to shape that terrain every single day.
So here's the key idea, the big takeaway. Think of it like this. Our genes might be the seed for cancer, but our diet creates the soil. It creates the terrain where that seed either really struggles to take root or it finds the perfect conditions to grow and thrive.
Okay, so let's really dive into this. We're going to break down the 4 main ways that a typical modern Western diet can, without us even realizing it, create a pro-cancer terrain inside our bodies.
First up, insulin. Now, we all think of insulin and blood sugar, of course, but it's so much more than that. It is a powerful growth signaling hormone. And guess what? Cancer cells, with their crazy appetite for sugar, are listening very closely to those signals.
Okay, so check this out. What you're looking at here are 2 completely different metabolic worlds. Over on the left, with refined carbs and sugar, you get these wild blood sugar spikes, and your body just pumps out insulin, basically shouting, grow, grow, grow to all of your cells. But on the right, with whole foods, everything is calm and stable. No emergency signals, no constant prodding to grow.
Next up is a hormone with a name that really tells you everything. Insulin-like growth factor 1, or IGF-1. Just like the name says, it's a very close cousin to insulin, and its main job is to promote growth. Which is great when you're a kid, right? But not so great when we're talking about rogue cancer cells.
So when IGF-1 is high, it's basically doing 2 things that cancer absolutely loves. First, it slams the accelerator on cell growth, telling them to multiply like crazy. And second, it cuts the brakes. It actually stops apoptosis, which is our body's amazing, built-in system for getting rid of damaged cells before they turn cancerous.
And this chart, wow, it just lays it out so clearly. So what raises our IGF-1 levels? Well, study after study shows that diets high in animal protein, and dairy is a big one here, are really potent stimulators of this growth factor. On the flip side, plant-based diets tend to keep those levels much lower.
All right, let's move on to our third driver. This one's a little more specific. We're talking about a particular building block of protein, an amino acid called methionine. And it turns out a lot of cancer cells have this really unique and potentially fatal dependency on it. I mean, just think about that for a second. This is fascinating. It's like a metabolic weak spot. Our normal healthy cells, they're flexible. If there's less methionine around, they can adapt, they find workarounds, but many types of cancer cells, they just can't. They need that steady supply or they're in big trouble.
And just like with IGF-1, the food connection is crystal clear. If you look at this table, where do we find the most methionine? Animal proteins, chicken, fish, eggs, they're packed with it. But plant foods like lentils and broccoli, they have enough for our healthy cells to do their job, but not the excessive amounts that can end up overfeeding those dependent cancer cells.
Okay, our final driver. We're going to talk about pH. Now hold on, this is super important to get right. You cannot change your blood's pH with diet. Your body keeps that locked in a super tight, non-negotiable range. What we are talking about is the local microenvironment in the tissues, right where the cells actually live. And that can definitely be influenced by what you eat.
So here's how it works. A diet heavy in animal products and processed foods creates this kind of low-grade acid load in our tissues. And why does that matter? Because cancer cells love acid. They actually produce it themselves to help them break down barriers and spread. So if our terrain is already acidic, we're basically giving them a head start. Plant foods, on the other hand, are full of minerals that help buffer this acid, creating a much less friendly place for cancer to grow.
So, okay, we've just looked at 4 different problems, 4 ways a modern diet can fuel cancer. It sounds kind of overwhelming, right? But what if I told you there's one single approach, one dietary solution that tackles all of them at once? Well, the good news is there is.
And here it is. This solution is a low-glycemic, whole food, plant-based diet. This chart shows you exactly what that plate should look like. It's built around all the good stuff.
Vegetables, legumes like beans and lentils, whole grains, fruits, nuts, and seeds. Basically food that grows from the ground.
And this right here, this is the real aha moment. This is why this approach is so incredibly powerful. This one way of eating systematically counters all 4 of those cancer-driving mechanisms we just talked about. It keeps your insulin stable, it lowers IGF-1, it reduces that excess methionine, and it promotes a more alkaline environment, all at the same time with every single meal. And on top of all that, it floods your body with protective fiber and thousands of anti-cancer compounds from plants. It's a total win-win.
Now look, I get it. Hearing all this can sound like a huge, massive overhaul. But the key here is progress, not perfection. You don't have to change everything overnight. So let's look at a few simple, really practical ways to start shaping your terrain for the better.
So think of this as your toolkit for change. It's all about sustainable shifts. Start making vegetables the star of the show, not just a little side dish. Try swapping in beans or lentils for meat just a few times a week. Choose brown rice instead of white bread. Every single one of these steps is a powerful push for your internal environment in the right direction. I really love this quote because it just sums everything up perfectly. This isn't about being afraid of food. It's about empowerment. It's about realizing that the power to create a cancer-resistant body is quite literally right there on your plate.
So, as we wrap up, the final question is really for you. Looking at everything we've covered, what's one small, simple change you could make this week to start building a less hospitable terrain for cancer? Because that one small step, it really could make all the difference in the world.